during that first 3 months, my routine, I lived in a family home, and there were 2 children, and they were entrepreneurs, so they worked out of the house. And I had my room there, and I would get up in the morning, and I would eat, like, fish and rice and soup, chicken sometimes, or, like, noodles. And then I would bike because we weren't allowed to take motorcycles. So they had us buy bikes and wear helmets. They gave us orange helmets. And we would bike over to whoever's like language learning house it was at. And we would have language training, and then we would eat. And then they had contracted with a university. So we would ride our bikes, all coming from different places. I'm trying to remember how many of us there was. I think there was like 120. We would meet up at the university, and then they would do some sort of presentation there. And then we would go home, and we would have dinner and take a bucket shower, call it a night. At the end of those 3 months, we had like a swearing-in ceremony.
Oleh saudari Sophia Phillips. So Sophie, the floor is yours.
Hari ini kami bergabung dengan 7.367 relawan Peace Corps yang sedang menjalankan tugas di 60 negara di seluruh dunia. Semua relawan tersebut berpegang kepada 10 Dharma relawan. Dharma relawan ini mewakili janji kami kepada masyarakat yang kami layani. Di depan kehadiran Direktur Peace Corps, Duta Besar Amerika untuk Indonesia, Konsul Jenderal Amerika Serikat untuk Indonesia, perwakilan pemerintah Indonesia, dan staf Peace Corps, kami ingin membuat janji kepada Anda, rakyat Indonesia.
It marked a big transition because that's when we were leaving our first host family. And in the case of Indonesia, they had 3 regions. They had one on an island, East Timor. They used the island of Java. East Java is where the eastern capital is, and that's where our training was. That's where we all flew into. And then Jakarta is on the west. So I was part of the West Java group. So after our swearing in, we had visited one time before, like a couple weeks before we left. We went on a trip, took the train across Java to West Java to meet our new host family where we would be staying and see our school assignment as well. I got assigned to an Islamic high school in a city which was like a little bit out of like one of the larger cities. So that was cool to have that proximity and just to see like that culture bleed of like how far a city can reach and how a smaller area can like retain its identity as well. And my host father he was a teacher as well. So it was amazing to have that resource. That was super helpful. And both the host family experiences were so wonderful. I think that's amazing to be able to do that. And that was an important part of choosing a Peace Corps post in the end that like had host family hosting. And they had many children, and a couple of them were away at Islamic boarding school because they were very religious. More religious than my family in East Java was. And they had a couple of young children, they had a couple of teenage children, and a couple of them were away at school. And it was cool to be integrated in that group, especially like when they would come home from school on like breaks or whatever, and we would all be together because sometimes we would go, like one time we went camping, and one time we went to these hot spring pools. It was just always like an adventure, and it was a very laid back, like people are just like Jalan. They're just like going, adventuring. They're just, you want to like, and that is definitely not like how I grew up. My parents, my like family was like homebodied for sure, like to a fault. And so being around a culture that was just like always like, let's hop on the motorcycle and go, was like one of my bigger challenges of adjustment. So I originally got there in November and started at my school, and my like teachers at my school were so amazing. They had like a really strong English department. The school identity was just really strong. It was so meaningful to be a part of that. The campuses are really cool. They're like kind of built around a courtyard and 2 floors, like classrooms on the bottom, classrooms on the top. and open hallways, like open air hallways, and then like the rooms are connected by the outside, because you can be when you're in a place that doesn't get cold. They had a teaching area with like everybody open desks, so like whenever it was like not your period to teach or whatever, you were just like hanging out in the Ranguru. And I loved that part of it too. It was so helpful for me socially, especially to be around like women, wives, teachers, working professionals, and learning like how it works there and like how much I could expand myself into it. It really was such a great experience. It was so welcoming. It was so accepting. It was an honor to like be able to do it. And I put this little pin on for the occasion of talking about it. It was the 70th year that they had the Peace Corps partnership. There was at one point where they like were there and then they came out, but then altogether it's been 70 years, so they gave us that nice pin. I love pins. I'm gay. I spent Christmas there. That was super psychologically weird, to be an American person somewhere else for Christmas. But we did a school trip, and I was like, oh, school trip, I know what that means. I like got my dress pants, I got my croc flats. All the Peace Corps people wear them, up skirts. Modesty for sure, but definitely not an issue. It wasn't an issue for me. I had hair at the time, and we take this like long bus because we're going to East Java again on a teacher bus, and we just like spent Christmas there because we went to like a carnival. We went to Mount Bromo, a tall mountain. It was like a social trip. It was a bonding trip, so it was fun because I thought we were going to be working, and it was for all those other benefits, soft benefits, which other countries do so much better than the United States does when it comes to work and values. And so then we were there January, February, March, and that's like when it started getting scary. It was just so... There's a lot of prejudice with different regions regarding other countries close to there. And talking about 2020, there was some really racist dialogue happening about where these germs were coming from, and that was painful to see, especially to see people so scared in a place like that. And then it was like anywhere that they had Peace Corps volunteers in Asia were getting evacuated, and at first it was like, yeah, we'll come back and then we'll go back, like everybody said about everything in 2020. And then it like escalated very, very quickly, as everybody felt, and they were like, okay, you got 2 days. You need to get on a bus tomorrow. You're going to cart to East Java, and then you are flying out. And so it was just over like that. We said goodbye at the school. I said goodbye to my family. It was crushing. It was shocking in the way of like you can't even process what's going on at all because you're so shocked. They had to put us in hotels for a couple nights, and we were all being like, you put a bunch of recent college graduates in a hotel together. And then they flew us back. And that was that. It was an immensely valuable experience for me. I would still recommend it to anybody who has like any of those feelings that I was talking about wanting to do it. And it was so spiritual for me, the way that it was cut like that. It was very impactful, and it was one of those moments in your life where you just are like, wow, this is so much bigger than me. This is so out of my control. And even when I thought I was signing something so concrete, doing something so established, it can still get pulled out from under you. And I try to take that philosophy forward.